Hi, it's Amber from Orange Olive Road. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more videos. In today's video, I'm going to teach you how to make this adorable tic-tac-toe game using a 22 needle circular knitting machine. First, you're going to need a 22 needle knitting machine. You're going to need your black and white yarn for your board, and then you're going to need two contrasting or just two different colors for your pieces. And then because we are going to be making some tubes with this and then stitching it together, you are also going to need some waste yarn. Then you just need a pair of scissors and a couple of needles. I am using the taper needle here to take my work off of the loom, and then I use a straight needle to help with my mattress stitching. Okay, let's get started. So one thing I want to mention when we are making this tic-tac-toe board is that you want to make sure that you get those rows right into squares. So in order to do that, you might have to check your tension. So the distance, right, or the width of the tube in a 22 needle machine, at least for the Addy, is 3 inches. So that means you're going to have to figure out how many rows, right, are going to make a perfect square. So in my case, it's approximately 3 inches this way. This is 16 rows. Okay. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cast on with waste yarn. So we're going to do a provisional and standard cast on where we go back and forth, in front and behind those needles, all the way around, just like this. I'm going to tuck my yarn back in the yarn guide, and I'm going to crank about 5 rows or so. So now that I have my waste yarn ready, I'm going to drop it in the center. I'm going to set my counter back to 0, and then I'm going to start with white yarn. Now I'm going to leave a little bit of a tail, right, so I can use this to slip stitch my ends closed. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and knit 16 rows. What I'm doing right here is actually just adjusting those first couple of stitches where my waste yarn caught on, just so that way it's neat when I go to stitch it later on. Okay, so now that I have 16 rows, I'm going to go ahead and cut my white yarn. I'm going to lay it forward, and I'm going to switch to black yarn. So I'm going to actually make a half box knot right here to join my colors, but I want you to see something right here. So if you see these pieces of yarn, they should really be underneath those red notches. So this is where the yarn, right where it ended. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it just slightly so that these come underneath that red notch. Okay, that's important because you don't want to have a tucked stitch or a drop stitch. So for now, I'm just going to do a half box knot like that and drop those 2 pieces into the center. And then I'm going to continue knitting my 16 rows. As you begin to knit your first row of the next color, you might notice that the color from your previous row creeps up like this. I just pull it down below the red notch. So now that I am back and I'm at 32 rows, I'm going to change my yarn color one more time, throw it back in there, switch to white, close up my yarn carriage, and I'm going to knit an additional 16 rows. So your counter should say 48 when you're done. Now that I'm back to row 48, I'm going to leave a bit of a tail, I'm going to cut it, I'm going to drop it inside, I'm going to switch back to my waste yarn and knit another 5 to 10 rows. Again, I want to make sure that these are below the notches. So I'm going to kind of pull it, make sure it's tucked under there just like that. Once you get to the end of your waste yarn, you'll want to crank until it starts to fall off the loom. If If you have a couple of stitches like this that are stuck, just go ahead and pull them off gently. Now you're going to go ahead and set this aside. Now we are on to our center piece. You're going to make just one of these, and you are going to follow the exact same process as your side pieces, except that you're going to start and end with black yarn. Now we're going to prepare our pieces. Now that your work is off the loom, you want to give it a nice stretch like this to release the tension. But don't forget, you have your pieces inside here that you need to fasten off. So we need to secure those ends. So we're going to flip it inside out, just like this. And now we're going to tie our ends. Okay, so we do that. I'm going to give it a trim. I'm going to do that again and give it a trim. Okay, just like that. Now we're going to take our work, we're going to flip it this way out again. Okay, so you can see, I can actually feel the color join is right here and right here. So if you want to put this on the edge, you can, or you can seam it up this way. It's up to you. Okay, so now we're going to tie off or crochet these ends closed. Okay, so now we are going to crochet our ends. So the first thing I want to do is organize my strands. This seems to be caught on that side. So here are these two. So I know those belong over here, and this one belongs over here. Okay, so when you are seaming an end closed or crocheting your ends closed, you need to find out where those stitches are. So let me pull you in a little closer so you can see what I'm looking for. So if you can see what I'm doing, this right here is the beginning of our waist yarn. So that is our first stitch right here. Then this one right here is where the beginning of the waist yarn is on this side, or end yarn is on this side. So that's our stitch. So what we want to do is put our needle in here. So this one is going to be so I'm going to put this one behind on that side. Going to tuck this in on this side. And now I'm going to take this yarn over and I'm going to pull it through. I'm going to go to my next stitch, which is right next to it, right in here. And on this side, I'm going to yarn over and pull through everything. And I'm going to continue doing this. The Addi 22, right, is 20. The Addi Express is 22 stitches or 22 needles, which means you will have 11 stitches. Right? So if it helps to count, then you go ahead and count. Sometimes I count, especially if my waist yarn is a little, or my working yarn even is a little flimsy, I will count before I do anything else. Okay, so here we go. You can tuck this in there if you want to, just so I can see where I'm at. Come in over here. I'm going to come in right here. Right, I'm going to go right in here. Be a little bit difficult to see. Right in there. And then I'm going to pick up that last one right there. Okay, pull it through, yarn over, pull it through, and pull it just like that. Okay. Now we want to take off our waist yarn. Okay, kind of see what we have. We have a nice flush edge. Now that we have our nice flush edge, you're going to flip it over and you're going to do the same thing. Okay, so there's something I want to tell you. So it's kind of hard to see it with this white yarn, but there is a right side, right, like this, and then there is the wrong side, which kind of looks like that. Now, if you were to do your work and start here and go across, you're going to have this side on the front, on the top, and then it would look like this across the bottom. To avoid that and to make sure that you have this, what you're going to do is you're going to turn your work around. So instead of starting here, you're going to start right here. So fold up your work, make sure your stitches line up. This is the corner. Start here in the corner. Okay, now because I want it to look the same, I could just like pull these shut, but I don't want to do that because I want to make sure it looks the same. So I'm going to just take a piece of yarn like this and I'm going to pull through. And I'm going to do that same thing, but going in the opposite direction. That is going to give me something flush, right, on both sides or on top and bottom so that it looks the same. Okay, and that's what we want. We want it to look even. We don't want to look like half of it's the wrong side and half of it's the right side. So that way it looks all even and nice and clean. So do this all the way across. I'm going to come back after I take off my waste yarn and give you a better look at what I'm talking about. All right, so because I started and I went this way, so now I have these two strands right here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie a small little box knot. Nothing big, just kind of small. All right, just to kind of secure it. And then what I want you to see is how now this right here is the front side. If you come down, guess what? This is also the front side. So now it looks clean across the top and down across the bottom. If you flip it over, you can see the wrong side and the wrong side. So again, if that is important to you, if neatness like that is important to you, then just something to keep in mind. Okay, all right. Now don't forget, you are making this twice. Once you have your side pieces done, you're going to go ahead and repeat the process for the center piece. So now we are going to lay out our pieces. There's one, there's two, and here is three. You want to make sure that they are the right size and also on the right side. So you have all those going across here. So now what we're going to do is we are going to take a needle and we are going to mattress stitch up this side and up this side. Now as we begin getting ready to mattress stitch, I'm going to kind of pull out the tension as much as possible. Okay. And so they may not be exactly right the same. So you may have to stretch it just a little bit when you sew it, but that is perfectly okay. So now I'm going to start by stitching these two together. So what I'm going to do for the mattress stitch is I'm going to come in here through the side, just like that. And I'm going to come in through here on this side, like this. I'm going to leave just a little bit of a tail, just a little tail, just like this, in case you can kind of see it, right? Not very long. And then what I'm going to do is I know that these are going to be flat like this, so I'm probably going to need to go right in here on this side and also right in here on that side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these and I'm going to put them like this. Now you can put some markers here to hold these, but it's a small piece, so I'm not going to worry about doing that. And so what I want you to see, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come in and pick up what we call these bars. So these little V's, we call them stockinette stitches. I have some videos here, or videos on my TikTok, I should say, about mattress stitching. So what you're doing is you're looking for these little bars. So you can kind of see them right in here. You're looking for those, and you're going to pick them up on both sides. Okay. Now when you go back and forth, you want to make sure that you don't jump over here or go underneath. You want to make sure that it stays nice and flush and that you're going all the way down in the same valley. Okay, so that matters, right? So that neatness counts. Okay, so I'm going to pick up about 2 stitches, right, or 2 bars over every pass. Okay, and so I'm going to go back and forth like this. I'm not going to worry about pulling it tight just yet. It's a little easier to see if it's still loose. So I'm trying not to put my hand over the camera where I'm working. All right, so I'm just going to kind of come in here. Okay, and then you will start to tighten as you go, right, or close up these stitches. Now, the key with mattress stitching, right, is that you want to make sure that you pick up, you don't have to pick up every little itty, like one by one by one by one. You can pick up 2 at a time, 3 at a time, especially if you're making blankets. This can be very tedious, right? So you'll have, however many rows is however many, stitches or bars you're going to have to pick up. So that matters. Okay. And then you'll start to see, right, I'm going to pull it just a little bit here. It's going to start to seam shut. Now the reason I leave this one right here is so that way if I have stitches on the end, I can pull them up. But as you can see, right, it's going to start to flatten out. Okay, so you're going to repeat this process and you're going to go all the way up the top for both of your pieces. Now something I want to make mention to you is when you get to these corners right here, you want to try to make sure that I push my finger down on it and then I pull, right, to make sure that those line up as much as possible. Again, it may not be perfect, but that's just one strategy that I use. And then you want to make sure, right, that you make sure that they are lined up as closely as possible. So you want to make sure that whatever you pick up on this side, you're also going to be picking up on this side. Again, just a way to keep it as neat and clean as possible, just for that aesthetic. So now that you have your board figured out, you need to determine your pieces. I made these using my heart tutorial here on YouTube. I made 5 in each color. But if you don't want to do that, you can also use a stiff felt. I bought this felt at Joann's and I cut them with my Cricut. They're about 1.75 inches square. Now, if you also don't want to do hearts like this, you can also do pebbles or something else. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay up to date on new videos.